Hello there YouTubers and fellow agents, and hail Hydra.
If they cut off one head, two more shall take its place. Hail Hydra.
Yes, it's been a while since I actually made a video, mostly because I wasn't motivated a lot to do more videos, plus my job and my cosplay hobby really got mostly in the way, but I've got a much more longer motivation to do things, and I'm very glad about that. And excuse me about the signs, it's raining outside, but I still want to shoot this video because it's actually a very special video to me. I'm going to name my top 10 MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, villains. I'm going to rank them all from 10 all the way to my number 1. So be warning, there will be spoilers for the movies in case you haven't watched. So if you haven't watched the latest movie, Civil War, I guarantee you characters from that will be on it. So if you haven't seen it, don't watch this video yet. And why haven't you watched it? It's fucking amazing. Absolutely great. So, if there's no any more reason to talk on, now let's start with my number 10. Number 10 on my list is Crossbones, and I didn't just put him on here because of his awesome outfit. No, really, I did. Okay, yes I did. And because he's mostly a lost opportunity. Hear me out here, once again, watch out for spoilers. So if you haven't watched Civil War yet, don't watch this because there will be spoilers. Rumlow is a really wasted villain in my opinion, kind of in the same vein as the leader in Strucker. Strucker was just killed off, just without a second thought, even though he is a big villain in the comics. Now, I would say Crossbones is as major in the sense as Strucker was. I mean, Strucker was the arch enemy type, Crossbones was more the henchman type. But he did play a significant role in the end of Civil War, because he is the one who shot Captain America to death. But that being said, Crossbones had its great times in Winter Soldier, but I just wish it was more character built up in that sense. But all in all, I really like Crossbones, quite by design and quite by character, but it could have been more. That's really the thought that crosses my mind mostly of the time. It just could have been more, it just could have been a lot better. But although he's still pretty awesome, so he lands my number 10 spot. Up to the next one. Number 9 on the list is Johann Smith himself, the Red Skull, and mostly in part due to Hugo Weaving's great acting. Red Skull is, of course, as many know, the embodiment of Nazi hatred. Really, and he's almost as close as pure evil as you can get in the Marvel Universe, at least on a human level. And then, of course, you have above that you have bigger things like Thanos, or the Eternals, or Galactus, even though Galactus isn't technically evil. Well, Magus is a better example, but as close as you get to humanly evil, then Red Skull is probably the most evil you'll get. Then why is he so low on this list? That's mostly in part because Red Skull didn't have much of an appearance. He was great in the movie that he appeared in, but there has been speculations all around ever since the first Captain America movie was released, that he would return. But Hugo Weaving doesn't want to return to the role, even though he would be by contract obligated to do so. But then again, I don't think Marvel would make him. He is a great actor, one of the greatest actors I've seen. And for that reason, I say Red Skull deserves a spot on this list, because even though his presence was limited in the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he still made a big impact as a villain. Because he is basically one of the most evil characters in the Marvel comics. By far the most evil as far as human standards go. So, by that standard, I would say, yes, Red Skull does deserve his spot on my list, but unfortunately he can't be that high. Number 8 on the list is the very first female big bad of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and of course I'm talking about Whitney Frost, also known by her comic book name as Madame Mask. What stands out to me about Whitney is mostly because she, like I said, she is the first female big bad. Not that there haven't been Marvel villains, female Marvel villains before in movies or TV shows, but she's the first one that actually stands out in my opinion. Nebula, in my mind, doesn't really fit as really one of my major favorite villains, mostly because her screen time was so limited, and she was played by goddamn Karen Gillan. So of course, what's not to love about her? Well, Nebula had a very limited presence. That's why I'm glad she's in the sequel, but more about that in a later video. Back to Whitney. Whitney is the first Marvel female villain that's actually really big bad. And of course she had a pretty amazing run in Agent Carter Season 2. I'm still really sad it's cancelled, but what are you gonna do? Whitney was powerful, ambitious. She didn't want to go by normal society standards from women only have to look out for the looks. She actually had a mind to compensate for the great looks she had. She was powerful, she was intelligent, and she wanted to prove that she was, not that she just was, that she wanted to prove she wasn't just eye candy for men. She wanted to prove she was actually a woman that you couldn't mess with, and damn right, she proved it. And I've always requested something that I've been demanding from Marvel actually is more female villains, main female villains, which is why I'm pushing so hard for Moonstone in Captain Marvel or Enchantress in Thor, but we'll get Hala unfortunately, but more about that later. Either way, Whitney has made it on my list for purely those great reasons. A powerful female villain just like I wanted. Could have been better perhaps, a bit more character development, and wish she would have used the mask, but it's Marvel, they would go for more practical reasons. All in all, I'm still happy with what they did with her character, so she deserves the spot on my list, and it's well worth it. Well done, Whitney. Number 7 on my list is the Kingpin himself, Wilson Fisk. Now it is clear without the shadow of a doubt that Wilson Fisk is one of the best villains ever in the MCU. A great thing about it is that they really humanized the character. He was a monster in the sense from he was brute, he was powerful, he could really intimidate and threaten and of course outrage himself to the point that he was an unstoppable berserker. But about that he was still shy, he was introvert, and I, as someone who's autistic and has dealt with that in my past a lot, really can relate to that. He was so relatable because he had a bad past. He had an abusive father and a caring mother. And he was still, even true in his later years, still so traumatized and still shaken by that. He was a creature of habit. He didn't like it when things changed. And to talk to a woman he really liked was really hard for him. And that's what the thing that makes us relate to him. That's what makes him a great villain. It's to show that he isn't just a monster, he's also human. A human with human flaws and things. He was all for love. He was all for change. He loved this city and wants to change it because of that. Of course, he is still the powerful figure that we know from the comics, but overall he was just a villain because he was a great villain because we could sympathize with him. Yes, we mostly have to sympathize with the heroes who have troubles or who have a tragic background, but the villains that we can also relate to makes us appreciate them more. And Vincent D'Onofrio did a great job, and I would have put him higher on my list if not the other villains just impressed me more. And that's not because Fisk isn't a good villain. Fisk is without a doubt one of the best villains in the MCU. Probably, I would say that he comes close to Loki in terms of popularity. And definitely he should return for more Daredevil and maybe hell even Spider-Man. There are rumors about that. I don't personally want it to be true, but if it were to be true, I wouldn't be mad about it. It'd be great. But the thing is, Fisk was just so relatable. He was a brute, he was intelligent, he was powerful, but he was also shy and he was also afraid of the talk of his feelings. He was a creature of habit. I myself can personally really relate to that. So that's what makes Fisk such an amazing villain, because, yeah, although he was brute, we could sympathize, and that's what makes his character so impressive and so amazing. So Kingpin lands a spot on number 7. I would have given him higher, but other villains just impressed me more. Number 6 on my list is Daniel Whitehall. Now, the reason, you're probably thinking, you put him higher than Kingpin? Yeah, I did. Let me explain. Daniel Whitehall was terrifying. He was a terrifying, heartless soul of a man. He barely had any humanity. He would do whatever it was in the name of science. And that's what makes him so terrifying, that he was willing to do whatever it was to further discover things. Discovery requires experimentation, after all. And he was just like, I felt he was also too underrated. He was killed in the mid-season finale of season 2, which was really sad because he was such a great villain, and just off him like that with just run away like garbage. And that's what made me mad and made me appreciate the great villain that Whitehall was, because I feel like they could have done more with him. They could have made so much of him. But they didn't, and that's really sad. But even in the short time that Whitehall appeared, he made a lasting impression of me. A lasting impression that made me to cosplay him. I cosplayed Whitehall, yes. And it made me really happy that we got such a great villain, because villains weren't that good in Age of S.H.I.E.L.D. We only had Ward and Garrett, but Whitehall changed all that. So really, Whitehall was just as terrifying. Not as maybe as terrifying as the Red Skull, but he was close to it. Very close. And number 5 on the list is Malekith the Accursed. And now you're probably thinking, Agent, are you mad? Tour 2 was horrible. Stop it. Stop it. Yes, stop it. In the name of Hydra, stop it. Now, I love Malekith. And I love the Ninth Doctor. You can combine those two. What more can I love? True, I did only watch Doctor Who after I already watched Thor: The Dark World. I only started watching it about last year or so. But honestly, I like that Malekith wasn't really that big of a villain in the comics. Maybe he was, but he wasn't as major as other villains like Scourge, Omora, Loki, Surtur, maybe even Ulik. Malekith wasn't used that often. He's definitely a threat to behold. The idea behind it is that I love it because they gave a minor villain a chance. Malekith is all in all a great villain and just holds so much deep personal, fanboyism for me. I love Malekith because they gave a villain that wasn't so popular a chance. Which is what I often wish they would do. I know they go mostly for the major villains because that's what's known, but Malekith was as great as he could be. Granted, yes, his character could have been better developed. He could have had more screen time, and I wish he did. But what's done is done, and you have no choice but to accept that. And overall, I love Malekith for everything. The character gave me a lot of good friends. Even my ex-girlfriend, really, she cosplayed the perfect Malekith from the comics. And it was actually through the character that I actually met her. And she was a major part of my life. And still, to this day, is really important. So I suppose I own a lot to the character of Malekith, even if his development was severely lacking in the movie. So for that reason, Malekith deserves a high spot on my list. Number 4 on my list, Kilgrave, aka the Purple Man. Most in part due to the incredible acting of the 10th Doctor himself, David Tennant. Having David Tennant cast for the role was great news, even though I wasn't really familiar with Tennant at the time. I knew what he was, and he knew the 10th Doctor, but I wasn't at the point that I didn't watch Doctor Who yet. And granted, the 10th Doctor isn't my favorite. He is really amazing, and I loved him. But he isn't my favorite. My favorite is the 9th Doctor. So it's ironic that Malekith came before, and he was played by Christopher Eccleston, who was the Doctor before David Tennant. But I digress. Really, it was a monster. But not a monster in the sense as Red Skull and Whitehall, who were perfectly aware of what they were doing and decided to be evil. It was the fact that Kilgrave didn't know how to be good. He was never raised from, hey, this is bad. or I can't do this to people. He just had this power which he used for his own gain. And it was kind of like a petty child. Well, which is ironic because he hates children himself. And that's the ironic part. But although it's just the great acting that mostly does it, and the character development, they didn't just put him in as this antagonist to fight with basically little to no personality. They actually developed the character, gave him a chance to be good, gave him a chance with Jessica. And yes, it's weird that people may ship Jessica and Kilgrave, even though I'm quite guilty of it. I cosplayed Kilgrave myself. My ex was supposed to be Jessica, but yeah, that pretty much explains itself. But all in all, Kilgrave was such a greatly developed character. He was such a greatly developed villain. And Netflix is of course the perfect place for much harder stuff. Deals with really big murder and with rape and sexual assault, which is really still a bit of a taboo topic for good reasons. But having to take that chance with a character as evil and vile as Kilgrave, that is something really impressive. And that they were willing to go through with that, even though the character would get massively hated and all the 10 Doctor fans would cry. I know one of them did. But all in all, it's pretty obvious that Kilgrave is such high on my list for that reason. I love what they've done with the character, and I love David Tennant's such great acting. You don't see that often, and if he ever gets cast as something else, you'll be damn sure I will watch it. But only if he is the villain. Because really, he should play more villains. He can be so creepy, and yet, we love him. Number 3, Loki. Yeah, it's cop-out time now, but still, for good reasons. Loki it depends on how you look at it, the biggest MCU villain. Mostly because he stuck around and because of Tom Hiddleston's great acting of the character. Loki is so greatly developed and so complex. Just like it's the evil brother kind of that we wished for. Loki made such a big impact on the MCU that I think most of the success of the Avengers came from him. Not so much for Thor, but maybe for Thor 2 too. I think most people just watch it for him. And if ever they would kill Loki off, which they might will, because Ragnarok is supposed to be his final film, then yeah, I think half of the fandom would die off, because they just threw away the biggest villain. And I've seen many Loki cosplays in my day, believe me. But Loki is for that reason also still so great, but then again you probably ask, why is he your number 1? Well, mostly because there are 2 more villains who made much more bigger and greater impressions to me personally. I take the villains of the series very seriously, more seriously than the heroes, because I don't like heroes. Heroes are boring as shit in my eyes. So villains of course take much more precedence for me personally. And just having that, just to think about it, how do I explain it? Loki is great, and we will always love him, and we will always want to see more of him. And yes, but Loki is no longer number 1. Not that Loki really was always number 1. He was basically my number 1 really in the beginning, after with the end of Phase 1. But now Loki has kind of slid away down the line, because there are, in my opinion, better villains. But I will get to those in a sec. Oh no, you can understand why Loki is so high rated. It's a real cop-out, but it's true. Loki is great for just so many wonderful reasons. And of course, what can I say? Tom Hiddleston makes everything sexy. Number 2, Hive. Yes, the new big villain on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But oh god, is he great. That's what's great about it. Brett Dalton previously portrayed Grant Ward, but now seeing him portray a character that's completely different but still looks the same, and that's just the incredible acting that Brett Dalton can do. It's that incredible acting to go from one character to another but still have that character's feelings, emotions, memories, ideals, and have the ideals of all the others that he has his memories of. Hive was just a villain that was so greatly developed. And yes, you can say whatever you want, it's just someone using Grand Ward's skin, but no, it's more than that. I love the scenes with him and Daisy, and that's not because I'm a Skyward shipper, but also because it really developed what Hive really wanted. He wanted a connection. He wanted to feel with them. He wanted to connect to all. So, for peace. Yes, and you could say he wanted to just have power, but maybe all he wanted was just a connection with everyone, to feel with everyone. That's what he wanted. He could connect and make people feel happy. That's just in the way it works, and in some kind of way he was right. He wanted to connect. What if everyone was connected? They could understand and feel the same about each other, about others, about situations. Hive does want a connection. That's what makes him so great, because his motivations are so different. His motivations are so original. He wanted to connect. And of course it's also in part Brett Dalton really portrayed the character well. And he just looked so badass, even in his true form. So, all in all, I would say Hive really has made an impression on me over the last few, months. Over the last few months, he really made a big impression on me, so much so that I really want to cosplay him as well. And I've already decided to do that personally. I will show you when that's done, but it's going to take a long while. But Hive definitely is one of the greatest villains I've ever seen in a long while. So much so that he even overthrew Loki. But that's up to me. So now it's time for my absolute number one. So let's prepare. Yes, absolutely. You could have already guessed, without a doubt, it's Baron Zemo. I've got, since the beginning of the Captain America franchise, I wanted Zemo to be one of the main villains of a movie. But we didn't get that until Civil War. I was so happy when Daniel Brühl was cast. I've always wanted him for Zemo. And when he was on the screen, and when he appeared, I got everything I wanted. Everything I wanted. He succeeded in what Loki and Ultron couldn't. He did it without even throwing a fist. He, and all his dialogue, all his motivations, and just the character himself. Yes, it's sad he won't wear the purple hood anytime soon, but I got everything I wanted with this character. Zemo is my favorite Marvel villain. And have him be in this movie. It's what I'm going to say without a doubt, and I don't care if you agree with me or not, that's up to you. But Zemo is the best MCU villain there is. Period. No doubt about it. He was really the most fantastic thing about the movie, and I don't care about Spider-Man or anything, it's just him. Him was all I cared about. And Marvel delivered graciously all my wishes. And I couldn't be more happy about that, and it makes me feel I can't ask for any more. So, that was my top 10 list. Let me know down in the comments below which is your favorite MCU villain. And if you would like to make a video too, just do it. I'll leave links down in the description below to channels for my friends. So, please subscribe for more Hail Hydra.